My name is Angus Henderson, and today is February 13th, 2019. I am talking to Mr. Dwight Kealiher, who began attending school at OSU in 1955. This interview is a part of the OSU Diverse Sexuality and Gender Oral History Project, specifically focused on the LGBT history of OSU. So let's start off with an easy one. Where were you born?
Actually, I was born in Tulsa,
Oh,
but
me
my
too.
parents moved away when I was still a baby. So I grew up in small Oklahoma towns, primarily in the east and southeast part of the state.
Oh, whereabouts?
I was Poco, Salisaw, Sulphur, Ada, and then Shakota, where I started, I think, the ninth grade and finished high school in Shakota.
I've been to about all of those. I went to high school in Yale.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
So what was that like? What was it like growing up?
In those days, it was a Southern Baptist household. Although it wasn't Southern Baptist like they are today, it, it was a more pleasant experience. But still, it was Southern Baptist to be sure. Um, so it was a I had a pretty sheltered upbringing, and the communication was not anything like it is today. You know, just strictly early on was radio and newspapers, and that was it. TV didn't come until much later for my family.
Oh,
So yeah, so I've always had a growing up. I always wondered about the rest of the world, but I was stuck in these various small towns.
I know how you feel.
And my parents did not travel much. We traveled mainly to see other relatives, but we didn't really like take off to the Grand Canyon or Southern California or New England for vacations. So,
Well, it's not too late.
so no, I know I've tried to make up for lost time since then, but it was a, I'd say kind of a quiet upbringing. You know, nothing dramatic, uh, no big excitements. It was comfortable, so easy. Yeah.
Well, there are worse ways to be.
There's worse. It could have been a lot worse. Yeah. No, I appreciate a lot of it. Yeah.
It sounds kind of nice, really.
Yeah.
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 How did you pick Oklahoma State University?
My dad had gone to school there. He didn't graduate from there, but he went maybe 2 or 3 years. Was an engineer, and that I did. I can't say I gave it a lot of thought. For a long time, I considered going to OU, and a classmate of mine was considering going to Oklahoma A&M as it was then, and then for some reason, kind of at the late stage of going to school, we both switched. He went to OU, and I went to Oklahoma A&M.
You still got one at each, I guess.
Yeah. Right.
What'd you think when you got there? Was it different than your hometown, I guess?
That was very different. Yeah, it was a completely different experience.
How?
I'd really never been on a college. I guess I take that back. I had visited there and I had been on band trips earlier to OU. So those were just basically 1 day visits. But to get there and be dropped off with my suitcase and here I am,
Oh,
it was pretty intimidating.
wow.
And I was in East Bennett Hall, and I went up to my room. I had no idea who my roommate would be, and it was a kid from Glendale, California, which to me could have been a foreign country.
Mars.
Yeah, and it worked out. We became good friends, and eventually became fraternity brothers.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
How did you join a fraternity?
It was probably not until late in my sophomore year. I actually from this former roommate, he invited me to come over to the house, and I hadn't given it a whole lot of thought. I knew several people in fraternities, but I had not intentionally tried to get in one. I did not go through Rush or anything like. I mean, Rush Week was a big deal back in those days.
It still
Oh, it
is.
still is. Okay. Well, I didn't participate in anything like that, but I did get an invitation and went over to the Delt House. It was very small then, and but at that point, it had only been on campus, I think, about 5 or 6 years, so it was still relatively new and small. And I liked that part of it. And they still had just a converted two-story residence, so it was just like living in some house, but just with the house mother and a bunch of guys.
Ooh.
So
That sounds pretty
yeah,
nice.
yeah, it was.
Yeah. What's the full name? Delta what?
Delta Tau Delta.
Oh, I think they're still
They're
on
still
campus.
there. Oh yeah, yeah.
I bet
Right
they have a
after-
bigger house.
Right after I left, I remember because I was treasurer my last year there of the fraternity, and we started making plans for a fund drive to build a new house, and so they did that right after I left. But I never.
Of course.
That was after the fact by then. So. But yeah, they've gotten stronger and have been I think a good chapter on campus there for many years.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet they'll be glad to hear that if they hear this
I
interview.
hope so. I haven't maintained any contact with them since then. I mean, it was good while it lasted, but then once I left, that was it.
Well, sometimes that's how it is.
Yeah.
It sounds like a pleasant experience, though.
It was, yeah.
What was it like? What'd you do?
In the fraternity?
Yeah.
Oh, we had, we would team up with sororities and maybe do like a joint dance party or some other activity. Let's see, we had, it did help develop your social skills and put some order in your life. Some kid away from home, and sometimes you don't know how to handle things. You did have the benefit of, we had a really nice house mother. She was good with us. She helped with things. But she was a pleasant person. She was a good friend. And in fact, a lot of the guys would sit around with her at noon and watch soap operas in her very small living room.
Oh.
But then we just became, it was just a good way to meet and get close and make good friends. So, and that was valuable at the time. I stayed in touch with them, with some of them a few years after that. But as time goes by, you move around the country.
Yeah.
I think my first couple of years here in Tulsa, after being at OSU, I did help with some of the summer rush programs, and that was fun.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
What's a summer rush program like?
They held rush parties in different towns, like alums say in Tulsa or Oklahoma City, would let some of the currently active members invite people that they wanted to go through rush and possibly consider that house as a fraternity, and so it would just be a party.
Wow.
I mean, not any big theme to it, but it was just mainly a get acquainted. Here we are. This is who we are. And some of the things we do, and then come rush week in the fall, some of those guys might show up and go on from there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, a lot of those the guys that were coming onto school, they would be going to various rush parties over the summer, and that helped them then when they got to rush week make a decision about where they wanted to pledge, if they got an invitation to pledge.
Oh.
So, there's always that, yeah.
Man, you're making me wish I'd gone to join a fraternity. It sounds like fun.
It was at the time, yeah.
Oh, man. Well, what did you do at school besides the fraternity stuff?
Well, I always worked. I had a part-time job, and early on in East Bennett Hall, some of my first friends there were hotel and restaurant majors, and there was the Student Union Hotel which is now the Atherton Hotel.
Mm.
Then it was just a student union hotel. And I got a job there as a bellhop.
Oh,
And then I worked that for a while, and then they put me on the front desk. And then probably my junior year, I worked the night audit. So that was it didn't work out well. It was from 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. every other night.
oh,
So I had no schedule. You know, it was one night I worked, the next night I didn't. I never knew when to. And then I had classes during the day. And I did that for maybe at least a full semester, if not longer. And then I had to quit that and go back on the desk.
I wouldn't have lasted that long.
And then at the time where the what is it, the steakhouse, somebody's in the restaurant. There's a name for it, but then
Yeah.
it's just the coffee shop.
Oh.
But for the campus and actually for Stillwater, at the time, it was probably the nicest restaurant in town
Mm-hmm.
to eat. And I worked in there as, I wouldn't call it maitre d', I think I was the host. I would just man the cash register and seat people when they came in. And then if the wait staff got overwhelmed with business, I could help bus tables or help the wait staff. But that was fun because that put me in touch with, a lot of people coming in for dinner. So
yeah,
I did that pretty much all the time I was at OSU. So
I like a front of house job at a restaurant. It's fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Were you an accounting major? Did you know already that you wanted to do this? Oh.
I was started out just a general business major, and then at some point, I guess this is when the Russians launched the first space probe or whatever. Sputnik, yeah. And I decided, I need to help America catch up. And so I switched my major, which was a mistake. And then I switched back quickly after one semester of that. And I went into education, into the School of Education, to teach business subjects. And I went all through that. And my last semester of that, I was had a practice teaching gig at Stillwater High School. And that was okay, but I realized doing that I was not cut out to be a teacher. So I finished in January. I had to go an extra semester from my change of major episode. So I got out of that in January of 1960, and then I had a part-time job at home until I went in the National Guard active duty for 6 months. And then got out of that and came to Tulsa, frankly looking for a job, and found a job with a CPA firm. But I only had about 9 hours of accounting. So there was a learning experience, and I went back to University of Tulsa night school and took some more accounting, and then finally got enough education and experience in accounting that I could sit for the CPA exam and pass that. And I've just been with it ever since.
For the record, we are sitting in a conference room at his CPA office. Is that how you?
That would be correct.
Yeah, it's really beautiful in here. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
Now, you worked and you were in the fraternity.
Yeah.
What did you do otherwise? I know you went to class, but surely you had friends you hung out with otherwise.
Oh, yeah. We'd get together, and it was easy at that time to go from Stillwater to Oklahoma City. And I remember going down to Oklahoma City a lot. That was the first time I ate at the steakhouse. I've already forgotten the name of it, but it was back in there was Prohibition then, and but you could go there and you had your choice of steak or chicken. Sleepy Hollow was the name of it. It was wonderful.
Oh,
And that's where I first got acquainted with Sleepy Hollow, and I would go downtown and go through all the stores and go to movies, and so we'd do things like that. And then back in Stillwater, a bunch of us would get together and find a place we could get some beer and drink beer, and that was about it. And we'd just hang out.
That sounds exactly like what I do
Yeah,
now.
okay.
So not that much has changed.
Yeah. But it was fun working in the hotel because of the different guests coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And some people did business with the school, so they were there periodically, and so you'd get acquainted. And it was good for me to get acquainted with people from other parts of the country, different backgrounds, because like I say, it had been a very sheltered upbringing, and I didn't have much. There wasn't much variety in my life, and so to see people, like I say, from other backgrounds, other parts of the country was good for me.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Oh, this sounds lovely.
it was good at the time. Yeah,
Did you date around much?
not much. I was I was not out at all. I was very closeted
All through college?
for the most part. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, for the most part. What about once you got out into that wild National Guard? Where'd they send you off to?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri,
Oh,
which was not good.
an exotic locale.
Full 6 months there.
Oh. We weren't in Korea at that point, were we? No, that was.
We were out of Korea at
Mhm.
that point, right?
We'd just gotten out of there. I
Yeah.
know that because of Elvis.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I've got all kinds of other questions. I didn't know about the National Guard. That's neat.
Yeah, that was at that time. It was 6 months active duty,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was a 6-year commitment. 6 months active duty, and then the remaining 5.5 years, you had one weekend drill a month out at the National Guard Armory on 15th Street in the fairgrounds,
Oh.
and then you had 2-week summer camp at an Army post. So
Here in Tulsa?
no, Camp Gruber. Camp Polk, several summers in Louisiana,
Oh.
and some Army post somewhere in Arkansas. I can't remember where that was.
They got a couple of them down there. I'm not sure.
But there was no fun in that.
Oh.
You just rode in an Army truck to the Army post, and sometimes we were in tents.
Mm. I hope not in Louisiana in the summertime.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah, but nothing exciting. I can assure you. Nothing fun about it. So it was just something to do.
Well, at least they didn't send you off somewhere, did they?
No. My probably the last 6 months or so in that reserve status here in Tulsa, I was working in the office at the Armory, and we were updating all of the personnel files with the anticipation that we might be activated and sent to Vietnam, because that was what was going on at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately, I got my discharge before anything like that happened.
Oh, what good timing.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like anybody's happy that went over there, you know.
No, not at all.
Oh, it seemed terrible. Well, I'm glad you got out of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of surreptitiously. But were you working at the CPA office for that whole 6 years?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. Was that here in Tulsa?
Oh, yeah. It's always been in Tulsa since then. Yeah.
It's not still around, is it?
The CPA firm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I left them in 1989 and just opened my own office here.
Oh.
So I decided I'm better off doing my own thing instead of being in a larger firm. So
yeah, make your own hours, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That seems nice.
Yeah.
But that's 20 years. That's a long time, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm an art major. We don't
Oh,
count.
okay. Yes, that's a long time.
Let's see. I have all kinds of other questions there. But, you told me in the questionnaire that while you didn't identify as gay in college, that was when you became aware of the possibility. And that was such a turn of phrase that I had to ask you about it. How did you become aware of the possibility?
Just, I think just the experience of getting away from home and seeing other people, a much wider variety of people from a much larger geographical area, and then probably unaware of picking up on personalities and people being more comfortable with certain people as opposed to others. Um, and then just becoming, I get more aware of the physical aspect of it, being more aware of basically, physical looks. Yes.
Oh.
And picking up on things. And sometimes people I would get to know, and I would sometimes wonder, but I couldn't even put it into words what I was wondering, but I was curious.
Yeah.
And then some of those people I've stayed in touch with and developed a friendship with as an adult, and virtually many of them, I won't say all of them, but many of them have since then identified as being gay.
Wow.
And it's been an interesting phenomenon for me that it was in those early days, we weren't aware of why we were, had an affinity or had developed a friendship. There was certainly nothing sexual or physical about it, but it was just, this is someone I feel comfortable with. And we go out and do things, drink beer, go to movies, things like that. And then much years later, find out, oh yeah, you too. And I've had any number of friends, even friends of mine who are younger than me, say 15 or 20 years younger, have had that same experience. They'll talk about being even in high school with someone, and then later as an adult,
you too.
Yeah, you too. So
I had that too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, when you're young, it sounds like a lot of us did that.
Yeah.
It's so nice to hear it happen to you too.
Yeah.
It's not just
way back then.
Yeah. Well, you're a real grown up, I'm just a college kid.
Okay.
He's had a job for much longer than me.
Yeah. Sure.
How did you come across these friends that you had this kind of affinity with, I guess? Do you just kind of meet them in classes and make friends?
Some meet them in classes. Several of them were people I met working in the student union, other employees, because there were and a lot of them were hotel and restaurant majors. So that's where I met a lot of them. And then some in the fraternity. Turned out the same experience with some of them that, we didn't acknowledge it or wasn't aware of it at the time. But in time, it turns out that, yeah, me too.
Wow.
So,
well, worse places to be than a house full of men, huh?
Right. I don't remember. There were probably several that I just simply had a class with, and would get acquainted, and going from there. Or then having one friend and that friend introducing you to somebody else. That was pretty common.
The grapevine, yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I've had that happen too.
Yeah.
Oh man! So after you graduated, you joined the National Guard just right off?
Several months later.
Oh.
There was some target date, so I went back to Shakota. I had an aunt who was the county clerk in Eufaula, the county seat, and I went down there and worked in her office until it was time to show up for active duty.
Oh.
Got on a bus and went to Fort Leonard Wood.
Oh. So, how'd you like that? What'd you call it? The county commissioner's office?
County clerk's
County
office.
clerk.
That was interesting because I had just finished. This was in, like say, the winter in January of 1960, and I went into to work in her office, and people would come in and ask me why I wasn't in school, and I said, "Well, I just finished school." Well, it turns out they were asking me why I wasn't in the Eufaula High School.
Oh!
Because in those days I looked much younger. I had almost a baby face, and so I didn't look like I had gone through 4.5 years of college, and they thought I was still in high school.
There are worse problems to have.
Yeah.
Wow. So what was the National Guard like? You had to spend a lot of time kind of floating around. Did you make any good friends in there?
Yeah, I did. Not so much in the basic training was the first 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
and that was not good. And then the second 2 months, or maybe 6 to 8 weeks, was what they call your specialized training. Whatever place they were going to put you, then you got training there, and that was a bit more relaxed in terms of being confined and confined to the base and all that. And I made some friends there. One from a French Cajun kid from Lafayette, Louisiana, who was pretty much a character, and then another good friend from just outside of Chicago, and we stayed in touch for some maybe 2 or 3 years after that. And again, he was gay, but we didn't. Neither one of us acknowledged it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And but then we lost touch. I don't know where he is now.
Well, if you can remember his name, I bet I could dig him up for you. So you just let me know.
Oh, okay.
That's what I've been doing all semester, is digging people up. So
Okay.
I can take another one on if you want me
Very
to.
good, very good.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, you did the National Guard, and they took you all the way out for 6 months, and then you got back and you did the weekends and the summers.
A weekend a month,
Mm-hmm.
all year long, and then 2 weeks active summer camp, we call it.
Oh.
Military summer camp.
Oh, what was that like?
There was nothing particularly enjoyable about it. You just showed up for 2 weeks, and they had you doing whatever tasks they could come up with. One year in Louisiana, and it was horribly hot because it was in the summer. It was really hot and humid down there, and we were building a log trestle bridge. And at some point, we were rolling this big log, and it fell and went on one of my feet and fractured my foot. So they wrapped that, put it back together, but I was out of commission. I couldn't do anything. But they didn't send me home. They just stuck me in some chair at some road intersection to basically be some sort of a guard. I don't know. They just had to do something with me, so they put me out there. I sat there in the heat with nothing to do, with my foot wrapped up in a brace.
Oh, I'm hot just thinking about it. That's terrible.
So there's no good memories from summer camp.
I'm glad you survived.
Yeah, me too.
Oh my. So you went from your aunt's office to
the National Guard.
The National Guard, to then what?
When I got out of the Guard,
yeah.
I came here looking for a job,
Mm-hmm.
and that would have been in November. And I decided while I was here looking for a job, I needed something to do. And so downtown was big in those days. All the stores were down. Most of the retail was downtown. And I went to Vandiver's department store and got a Christmas holiday season job in the basement, in the housewares and children's toys department, and just worked out. It was fun, but that was very short term. In the meantime, I was interviewing for jobs, and I found the job with Stanfield and Odell, and started to work there the day after New Year's.
Wow.
So that was, and it was fun being downtown. And then I never did work downtown again after that. But I enjoyed that. And there were a lot of places to go. Like I said, it was full of many interesting stores, and I would go visit all of those different stores. And that year for Christmas, because I come from a big family, and I wanted to get Christmas presents, but I didn't have any money because I'd been 6 months in active duty and was working a part-time job that didn't pay much, obviously. So I made a list of the different people I would want to have gifts for, and I did my Christmas shopping with a limit of $1 per gift. And that was a challenge, but it turned out to be a good thing. It was a lot of fun to go in all these various stores and see the best thing the most you could get of something for $1 that had some meaning or some value to it. It was probably one of the most fun shopping experiences I'd had ever since, too.
Oh.
Now it gets pretty grim trying to find things.
Yeah,
but that was a good experience. So
that's so neat.
Yeah.
Is that when you kind of started to come out? I suppose.
Well, again, not actively, but becoming more aware. I know one of my early experiences was riding a bus to see a play at Tulsa Little Theater. That at that time was out at 15th and Delaware, just on the south side of 15th and Delaware. And I went to that, enjoyed it. Then I walked out over to the intersection of 15th and Delaware. There was a bus stop because during this time I was living in a room at the YMCA.
Oh.
And so I needed to take the bus back to the Y. And I guess a couple of guys had seen me in the play, and they drove by and asked if I'd like a ride. I didn't think, honestly, I was too innocent. I just thought, oh, okay. So I got in the car with them, and they stopped at the apartment of one of them that was not far away, kind of on the way downtown. And we went into their apartment, and I became aware in some vague way that, I wonder what's going on. And then I just told them I needed to get back, and that was it. They were very, very polite, did not do anything, that made me uncomfortable, except that I knew I didn't need to be staying. I guess one of them was ready to leave, and so he was going to leave me there. And I said, well, I really need to go back.
Oh.
And they were cool with that, and which I since have really appreciated, because it could have turned out to be something a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And so he took me down, dropped me off at the Y, and then a week or so later, one of the guys came in the toy department at Vandiver's just to say hi, and was very friendly and all that. And then I never saw them again.
Oh.
Anyway, that was a good experience, and that let me know something was going on.
And that you were cute.
Well, maybe, I don't know about that.
Well,
yeah.
It's not often to get picked up.
That's true. That's true. And then there were some, some people staying at the Y that kind of,
cool.
But nobody there came on to me or anything like that. That was kind of a non-event, and I wasn't there all that long, because after I got a job with the accounting firm, then I had a fraternity brother who was a year ahead of me in school, and he was already here in Tulsa, working as an accountant himself. And he had an apartment, and we got an apartment together and roomed together until I got married. So,
Oh, yeah.
but then there was nothing, if anything, he was asexual. And so there was nothing, no relationship there, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
When did you get married?
it would have been a couple of years later.
Well, you can't not tell me about it.
Well, it was a girl who I had known growing up, and she was also, her family was from Chicago. Her grandmother had been my piano teacher when I was in high school. And in the meantime, she finished her last 2 years of high school living with an aunt here in Tulsa who was at Will Rogers High School. And so she attended her junior and senior years at Will Rogers, and then went to the University of Tulsa.
Oh.
And just knowing the family kind of threw us together, and one thing led to another. And I got married. We were married for 20 years.
Wow.
And have 3 sons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you liked her well enough, huh?
Yeah. No, we had a good marriage for many years, but it just got, as the years went by, I became more and more aware and had to deal with it and be honest about it. And so I finally discussed it with her and said that I needed to do this, and so we got a divorce and went on from there.
Wow.
So, and our boys they're all good. We've stayed close, and I've been with Mike ever since, and they're very close to him too.
Oh.
As are their children.
Oh. So, wow. You kept the big family tradition, didn't you?
I did. Yep, sure did.
So you had a roommate, then you got married,
Mm-hmm.
then you lived with her for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then you found Mike.
Yeah, I was still married, and I was a runner at the time, and so I used a facility in the basement of the university club. They had a locker room, a little small exercise room, and a sauna there. And so I had a friend who was an attorney with Skelly Oil Company, which at that time was at 15th and Boulder. So we would frequently meet at the university club, change into our running gear at noon, run on Riverside, come back, clean up, and go back to work. And some days when I didn't make it for the noon run, I would go by after work and run in the evening after work. And I would frequently, that's where I met Mike, because he was a swimmer and he lived in the building and would be down there changing to go swim. So we got acquainted there, and it was over some time. It took a while, and then as we became better friends and I became more comfortable with him, then I came out to him, and he, returned it was fine with him because he was also, he had been pretty much out most of his life.
Wow.
And
I'm just going to close the door back.
Oh, yeah. So there you go.
Go on.
One thing led to another, and over time, that experience did reinforce my awareness and my realization of who I was, what I needed to do.
Wow.
And in the meantime, he moved to California,
Oh
But
no.
then we got together on weekends or something several times during that time. And then I made the move out. And then um, a few months later, he returned to Tulsa. And then we've been together ever since.
Oh wow.
That was in 1982, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, it has been.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
it's been good. Yeah.
Wow. Did you get involved in like the larger gay community or?
But at that time, yes, because I had I knew just a handful of other people who were gay, and soon after I made that move, then they introduced me to Tulsa Oklahomans for Human Rights, TOHR, which is now OKEQ,
Mm-hmm.
and I got involved with that early on. And by 1980, I guess 1988 or 89, then I became treasurer of TOHR and was that for about 2.5 years. And then again later, I guess in the early 2000s, I went back. It was still TOHR, and I was treasurer again for another 2.5 years. And during that time was when we made the plans to change the name to Oklahomans for Human Rights, Oklahomans for Equality. I'm sorry, and it had been Tulsa Oklahomans for Human Rights, and it became Oklahomans for Equality, and we bought the Equality Center property downtown.
Oh yeah.
And that's when I ended my tenure, and so it was kind of we did that, and then I've been there 2.5 years as treasurer, and so I got out.
Mm-hmm.
But then I've stayed active since then, and then I was active I was on a rain team for several years. It was Regional AIDS Interfaith Network, and we provided services for people with HIV/AIDS. And then there was Rainbow Village, which was an organization to provide housing for people with AIDS that had no other housing. And that's been pretty much it. And my latest was Tulsa Girls Art School, which has nothing to do with the gay community, but it was gay friendly anyway. So
That sounds neat too. Yeah, I want to back up a little bit though.
Okay.
How did you learn about HIV in the first place?
I was still married when I first read about this rare Italian cancer that appeared mostly in elderly Italian men called Kaposi's sarcoma.
Oh yeah.
And there was unusual cases of young men. The first reports I read were in New York and San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went on from there. And then Rock Hudson was big in the news back then because he was
Rock
a movie
Hudson.
idol. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and they tried to keep it hush hush for so long, and it was apparent to anybody who knew anything about it, what was going on. So.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I was out and involved in the gay community, then I knew a lot of people that I had firsthand experience with it. So.
Wow. What all did you do as the Tulsa's 40? I always want to call it the Equality Center because it's always been that since I've
It's
known it.
at the Equality Center, but it's Oklahomans for Equality,
Yeah.
and the predecessor was TOHR.
Mm-hmm.
We had in TOHR we started testing clinics that are still going on today. You got Hope, and then oh dear, I'm bad with names. The other center that all of those came out of those early day efforts to deal with that. We had the testing clinics, and then we had meetings and classes just for AIDS education, uh, and just went on from there. And then Range started in Oklahoma City, and then opened a Tulsa office for Regional AIDS Interfaith Network, and established RAIN teams in out of various churches. And then I didn't get involved in that when they first started here, but then later they had a meeting for people interested in that, and I went to that for a workshop, and I was on the first RAIN team, not associated with the church.
Oh.
And it was out of PFLAG.
Oh.
So we had a PFLAG RAIN team, and I was on that for several years. And so that obviously, put you in close contact with people with AIDS, and as they progress through the disease. And so that was, it was quite an experience to do that and see what those people went through.
Mm-hmm. Was it scary? What was it like?
It was early on because there was so much unknown about it, and as you got more information, then you knew better, precautions and what to do. But then for a period of time, there was that big unknown question that it could be dormant, and people could be carrying that and not know it until much later. And so you still did all the testing.
Oh.
All that.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it was, and you saw good friends that were wonderful people get diagnosed, and it was pretty heart-wrenching. But then they started developing some of the medications that, as where we are today. But early on, that was a period where there were a lot of side effects from those early medications, and sometimes they worked and sometimes they didn't. So that was still a stressful time for many people. So I felt very fortunate that I was never, personally. I haven't had to deal with it personally, except in trying to help other people.
Mm-hmm. So. You got kind of hitched up and just stayed there, huh?
Yeah, right.
Well, if you find a good one, don't let him go, huh?
That's right. Yeah.
I have heard that Riverside, where you were running, was a good cruising spot. Do you know anything about that?
Mm-hmm. That happened.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was not uncommon to be running one direction on the path, past somebody, and then if you took a few more strides, turn around, they may have done the same thing. Sometimes you went on your separate ways, and sometimes you stop and visit, get acquainted. So.
Oh, I knew it. Since I've been over there too, and I always thought that, but I never really saw anybody, and I wondered if it had been like that in the past.
Oh yeah, that was. Mm-hmm. In fact, even in the public restrooms, the Tulsa police would set up sting operations trying to lure guys in the restrooms and then arrest them. That was not good.
That seems so cruel.
It was. Yeah. It'd be ridiculous today, but that did happen.
Did they ever run into you? Did you run into them?
No.
Oh, good.
Not at all.
Oh, I wouldn't want to. How did you feel about the police at that point?
Well, I thought it was disgusting. I mean, it made no sense to me, and I thought it was cruel and unnecessary, and I questioned the legality of it, even though I'm not a legal person, but I just thought it was a setup, and I knew. I had one friend, an older guy, maybe he was roughly my age, that he was definitely set up, targeted by the police. And this didn't take place in Riverside, but it took place in a bookstore where he was looking at gay literature, and a hot young policeman came in and chatted him up, and one thing led to another. And it was, like I said, it was definitely a setup, and this guy was arrested.
Terrible.
Horrible experience. Yeah.
Oh, and that just happened. Just police would do this.
Oh yeah.
Oh. So you heard stories about this happening just all the time?
It was not uncommon back then. I don't hear it now.
Oh God.
Yeah. I don't think people would stand for it now.
I hope not.
Yeah.
What was the rest of Tulsa like? Were there bars you like to go to?
There was, there was a bar. Oh gosh, it was way north on Pine and out pretty far out east. And again, I can't think of the name of it, but back then it was a beer bar. And it was interesting because when I was dating my future wife, and we would go out with another couple, he turned out to be gay. I found out later on himself. But at the time we were dating, and we would go out to this place just for beer, and but then I would be out there, and I'd kind of pick up on some vibes. The guy that owned the bar was already pretty much out, but he operated it as a straight beer bar. But I could tell so there was a few times that after work I would go out there by myself, and we got acquainted. And then at one time he gave me a small matchbook, and he had written his name and address on it and invited me to a party. And I took it, and then later I realized what this was going to be, and I wasn't to that point yet.
A private party?
Being comfortable with that, so I didn't go.
Oh.
But that was part of the process of becoming more aware of myself and meeting other people. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a gay bar, but it was sure.
But then it turned into one.
Oh,
over time. Yeah. Then finally, just like I say, over some period of time, then it became exclusively gay. It's been very it might still be in operation.
Oh,
I don't go to bars anymore, so I don't know. But I mean, he's long gone. But
well, I hope
but he was quite a character. Again, I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Oh, don't worry.
His name, but it was somewhat of an institution in the gay community in Tulsa for many, many years.
Wow.
Sometimes late at night, he'd have a big crowd in there, and then he would just go lock the door, and then it got a little bit wilder. So.
Oh, you wouldn't know anything about that, would you?
I was out there a couple of times with that, yeah.
Yeah. Was it fun? What was it like?
Oh yeah, it was just a big, by then people had been drinking mostly beer all night. It did become a club with drinks.
Mm-hmm.
But he would flirt with different guys and have his fun with them. So it was interesting. It was fun.
That does sound fun.
And then there was I remember a place called the Queen of Hearts on South Main, and I was in there one afternoon after work.
Mm-hmm.
And this was still in the days of liquor by the basically private club. You couldn't openly serve drinks. And the kid that had that bar he was pretty well known in the gay community, and he had a couple of other bars. Then he opened the Queen of Hearts. It was very popular. And one day I was in there, like say, it was early evening, it was like just after work. And the policeman came in and raided the bar because he had open containers.
Oh.
And handcuffed him and took him off. And I was sitting there like, So they didn't bother me, thank goodness.
Oh.
It was a bit unnerving at the time. But then, of course, he was back open in a few days.
Oh, good.
From there, yeah.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
Well, there was the bar out on Pine. There was the Queen of Hearts. What else was there?
And then for some time there was I think it was called the Roundup. It was in a strip center south of 15th on Sheridan. And it was very popular. It was kind of a Western themed.
It sounds like
a lot
it.
of cowboys and a lot of Western music.
A lot of Wranglers.
Yeah. But it lasted for, I forgot, but for several years. It was very popular. And I remember one time when I was with Rainbow Village, and we needed to do a fundraiser to raise some money. And so someone suggested that all the board members, which I was one, do a drag show. And I had never done anything like that. So I was we went to a place that was kind of a day center for guys with people with AIDS, for them to have a place to go during the day. And they took us, we went there, and they had various makeup artists come in and work on us. And they worked on me for the longest time, and I thought I was going to be Patsy Cline. That's what I was going to represent, and do a show with her recording. And I kept thinking, gosh, they're taking so much time on me. I thought I'm going to look wonderful until I saw a picture. Oh my God, it wasn't so great. But so then that evening, once we were all ready, then we went over to the Roundup, and I think that was the name of it. I could be wrong there too. Anyway, went in there, and then we mined all these different numbers, and I was out there in costume with this big Patsy Cline hairdo, and I didn't know what to expect, and I was shocked when somebody came out and started tucking a dollar bill. Oh, wait, that's what this is all about. But that was a one-time experience. I've never done that since.
Oh, it sounds like fun.
But it was fun. I got a lot of some attention out of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, if you find a picture of that, you have to send it to me.
I don't think any exist.
Oh man. Oh man.
I'm sure they're long gone. That was a long time ago.
When was that?
It would have been late 80s or early 90s, I think. Yeah.
How fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I want to go to a drag show in Tulsa. Man. So there's 3 whole bars. What else did you do?
Well, the TOHR always had an annual sit-down dinner and a silent auction. And that's, over the years, that's turned into the gala, which basically now every April, and it's a much bigger occasion than what it was back then. But that always took some time, because as treasurer, then I would handle the silent auction, and then there's other fundraisers that that we go to. And then I was in an investment club for about 10 years that was primarily a gay membership, both men and women.
Wow.
And I made some good friends there that are still good friends.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was interesting. It was somewhat educational, because it was an investment club. People would come to the meetings and present a stock or an investment and discuss it. So you got it was somewhat educational in that you learned how to value, how to investigate and make judgments on investments. But then we made it also social because different members would volunteer their homes and everybody would bring something to eat. And so we would have a meal and drinks and then do the investment club business. So
That sounds so fun.
it was, yeah. And then when we cashed out, and I was treasurer of that. And so when we liquidated that, then especially those of us that have been in there all that time, ended up with a nice little investment return for what we've done all those years.
Well, there you go.
So that was a good experience.
That sounds so nice.
Yeah.
I think I just said that, but it does.
It was good. Yeah, like I say, it was fun at the time. You learned something from it, and had fun. So
Good.
Made some good, like I say, some good lasting friendships.
Oh, man, that's so nice.
Yeah.
What did you do with Mike?
He was in the club too.
Oh.
When he came, he was gone from Tulsa for a while, work-wise, and came back, and we were in that together, and we've just been together ever since.
Oh.
So
You go out to dinner with him? What do you do for fun?
we go out to dinner, and we're both vegan. We've been vegan for coming up on 8 years now.
Wow.
And we have other vegan friends, other vegan gay friends.
Mm-hmm.
So we get together with them a lot, compare recipes, do things like that together. And then just other friends, we just get together and go out to eat. I have a kind of a mixed bag of friends that's started out just inviting a couple of guys over for a martini one evening before we were going to go to Cafe Samana, which was a vegetarian, mostly vegetarian / vegan cafe up here at 38th and Peoria.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, well, they were going to join us at Cafe Samana, and I said, we'll stop by the house for a martini beforehand, and we'll go there. And then they did that, and then it kept going, and now I have an email list of about 25 people that I'll invite, not so frequently anymore, but I'll invite occasionally to the house on Friday evening for a martini. And they come by at 5:30, and I pre-mix a big pitcher of either vodka martinis or gin martinis. And they come in, and then I make reservations at some restaurant. And so those who want, then we go up to the restaurant and eat, and then other people have other things to do. But it's at 5:30 to 6:30, so you have time to do whatever you want the rest of the evening. But it brings a group of people together that know each other and like to visit, but otherwise may not see each other very frequently, if at all, for a long time. So it's just kind of neat. It's very unstructured. And
It sounds
just kind of
lovely.
grown almost by accident. But it's a good group of people. So.
Oh, that sounds so pleasant. Oh, that's so cool. Let's see. You've answered so many of the questions that I have just by way of talking, which is always what I hope for. So thank you.
Sure.
Let's see. You've lived in Tulsa just ever since then.
Ever since, yeah.
Oh, man. Have you been back to OSU since?
Several times, but not nearly as many times as I would like to say I have. It's just, I just don't get over there. When I was over there actually the first day of the fall term, just kind of drove into town spur of the moment. And I remember being surprised at so many kids there. Well, it turned out the first day of school, so everybody was out.
Oh.
But I found it difficult to to get around on campus because so much of the inner part of the campus was closed, to car traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And driving around, and I could see the construction and the expansion was very surprising.
It's just enormous now.
It is, yeah.
But it's still, they kept that same kind of old brick building
The
style.
Williamsburg architecture.
Williamsburg,
yes.
thank you.
Yes.
I was thinking Georgia, I knew that wasn't right.
Yeah.
But it's just beautiful.
Yeah, they have maintained that over the years.
Yeah. You'll have to come by sometime when it gets warmer out and see that Union, because the Union's just enormous.
Now, I have been back in the Union. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's completely different from when I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How so? Just larger?
Larger, and just a different operation where you have the food court now. That was just the student union cafeteria.
Oh.
It was just a cafeteria. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had that, and then you had the coffee shop between the union and the hotel.
Oh, yeah.
And then
the Ranchers Club, that's what it's called now.
Yeah, the Ranchers Club.
Mm-hmm.
And then up on the top floor was all open. I think some of that's enclosed now.
Mm-hmm.
But
they got a glass ceiling on top of it, though.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
But that was completely open back then. And then you had the big lounge rooms. It was the French lounge and the modern lounge. And it seemed like there was another one.
There's a Starlight Terrace.
And it was a Starlight Terrace.
Mm-hmm. We had a drag show in the Starlight Terrace not too long ago.
Well, that wouldn't have happened when I was there. And then there were small retail shops on the ground floor. There was, of course, the bookstore. And then I remember there was a drugstore, a men's clothing store, and some other just regular routine stores that people leased the space and had their operation in.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Sounds like you really wouldn't have had to leave campus at all, would you?
Not really.
Wow. There's a barber in the Union now.
Yeah.
Might be in the same spot even.
Could be, yeah.
But I wanted to ask how you thought things had come along since you were in college. Like, overall, I know it's a great big question, but what do you think is the biggest thing that's changed?
Well, the openness and the greater communication. Yeah.
What do you think caused it?
Well, I think it's pretty much taken place across the country as people have gotten better educated and the world has opened up because of TV and now the internet and online things. There's just a lot more knowledge. I mean, when I was growing up in Shakota, there was simply a lot I didn't know and I didn't have access. So, it just wasn't there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the Stonewall riot in 1969?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? How?
Well, I read about it in the paper and I picked up on it. There was that. I knew it had some.
It was relevant somehow.
I could relate to it. By 1969, I definitely could. So.
Wow. You were married then, weren't you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Was there often stuff that you read in the paper like that you noticed?
Maybe some, not a whole lot, but occasionally I'd read about, or I might read about, some news article about, again, like some sting operation, Riverside Drive. I'd pick up on that. There was back then, there was even a few early gay books. I remember reading The Front Runner, which was one of the earliest novels with the gay theme. And again, it was surprising that it was, at that time, that it was written by a woman. The author was a woman.
Yeah.
She was writing about gay men.
Huh.
And I can't remember her name, but I saw in the news just within the last couple of weeks that she had died.
Oh.
She was, but I mean, by now she was up in her 90s. You know, she was very, very old. But that brought back memories of that book. And then there were a couple of others that were that I ran across while I was still married that I read, and again that helped me with my awareness of it and understanding.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Wow. You had books. The newspaper sounds like it wasn't all that fun to read, but I hope the books were a little more pleasant.
And then there was gay literature.
Like what?
Well, there were gay magazines.
Oh.
And back in the 60s, probably up into the 80s, maybe even early 90s, they were very popular. There was, I remember working in a drugstore in Shakota. On the magazine rack, there was something called Physique Pictorial.
I'm researching that. I'll tell you all about it after the interview.
It was very tame, but it was a small magazine about like that, and it was basically pictures of good-looking young men.
Hunks.
But they some were, but not necessarily all of them.
Oh.
Yeah. But they all were at least wearing some kind of clothing, or if nothing else, at least a posing strap, it was called at the time. And that was an outlet for me, and I would send off to these magazines. Sometimes you could find them on the racks.
In Shakota.
There, and then on through college, and once I got to Tulsa.
Oh.
At one time, there were several subscription magazines, In Touch, and Men, and The Advocate.
Oh yeah.
And there were others that I've forgotten now, but they're all pretty much gone because of the internet. I think In Touch is still in existence.
I think The Advocate's all online.
I meant The Advocate. The In Touch is not. I meant The Advocate. Although I don't know if they make it print.
I'm not sure.
It may be strictly an online publication. And then there's still a print magazine called Out.
Yeah.
And I still get that.
How long?
But these early day magazines they had some editorial content, but they were basically picture magazines.
I've got a couple of those physique pictorials. You can buy them on eBay.
I'm sure you can. Yeah.
I got the 1957 one with Tom of Finland's first cover.
Yeah.
You know Tom of Finland?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was an early day contributor to Physique Pictorial. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Did you look at a lot of his pictures? You know anything else about him?
I looked at a lot of his pictures. Yes.
It's okay, me too.
Yeah.
They're very pretty.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, thank God for the internet now that you can get just anything.
All right.
We'll have to talk about that later because it's not all that related. I just love it. Well, let's see. You think it's better now, or what do you think? Just things for gay people in general.
Oh, definitely, yeah, because of greater acceptance and more awareness and just the ability or the environment for people to be out and not be so closeted, which was pretty much the case, way back then.
Wow. Well, I'm glad it's not.
Right. Yeah.
I'm glad you made it through.
I am too. I feel very fortunate that I was able to, because I've known people who I've certainly had reason to think that they were very closeted and they could never could make that step to deal with it and come out. And I feel like they've suffered.
It seems like the dealing with it internally is the harder part than coming out to other people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They can't. They're just in denial and fearful of what would be involved, and so they suppress it and go on about their lives, but they miss out on a lot by having done that. I've known several people like that.
Oh. Do you have any advice for the young college kids who maybe listen to this and maybe they're closeted too? Or maybe they're not.
Well, if they are, I think you could say this to anybody, but certainly a college student, is just to get as much information as you can and deal with it as objectively as you can, and not forget, but get away from the stereotypes and the prejudices that so many of us, which I certainly did, grew up with, and make your own decision. But the main thing is just simply being honest with yourself.
That's good advice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's nothing unique.
Well.
But I mean, that's basically it, really, is to do that.
Mm-hmm. What were the stereotypes like when you were a kid that you had to kind of get rid of before you could work it out?
Well, I was a sissy.
Oh.
In high school, yeah. I had an older sister who was more of a tomboy, but we were just like a year apart in school, and growing up in that small high school, I have a lot of the guys would say to me that well, I should have been the girl and my sister should have been the boy in the family. So that pretty much told me where I stood with them, and so I was very, I had to play it safe. I was very, very, very small, very slight, and they were much bigger, and there wasn't any point in taking them on.
I know how you feel.
So yeah, so
But you made it.
I made it, yeah.
So if you can do it in Chakota, Oklahoma,
anybody can do it.
in the early 50s,
Yeah.
Man, that's so neat. You've seen so much.
After this long a time, yeah, it's a long time.
That's so neat. I mean, what do you think of what I'm trying to do here? You think it's worth anything?
This history project,
Yeah.
Of course, I think it's good. I think it'll be good for people to hear tales and learn about experiences that we've had over the years, and hopefully somebody dealing with some of those same issues then can get some encouragement that there's a lot of possibilities.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Well,
so hopefully it'll be somewhat enlightening to people, that maybe they can remember some events. They'll hear somebody else's tale, and oh yeah, I remember something like that, or somebody like that. You never know. I think our lives are directed a lot by coincidences, and it's again, it's what you make, how you respond to those coincidences. I mean, I'm like meeting my first roommate from Southern California. Had nothing to do with that. That was strictly a coincidence, but that led on to getting in a fraternity, meeting a lot of other people, and it just grows from that. There's been any number of incidents like that over the years that eventually have some impact on your life.
I guess you never know, huh?
No, you don't.
That's so neat. It is so neat to hear that we've been in Tulsa this whole time. that there have been gay bars this whole time.
Oh yeah, there's been, I'm sure, many more that I haven't even touched on. Right now, one of the popular bars in town is the Eagle, which I've never been to, but I think you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of my friends go there. But again, Mike and I just don't go to bars. We did early on. There was one of the earliest ones, a dance bar was Zippers
Oh.
at 32nd and Winston.
Oh.
It was just a block off of 31st and Yale.
Oh.
And that was back in the days of disco.
Oh.
So early on, we would go there, and that's where a lot of our friends went and got out and discoed on the dance floor. That seemed like such a long time ago. But yeah, we did that. And that lasted, that was already going strong when I came out and kind of got into the scene, so to speak. The Zippers had been going for several years, and then it lasted for several years more before it went out of business. But that was, well, there'll be a lot of people in Tulsa that can remember the days of Zippers.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it was.
It sounds like you've had a really good time here.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're still having a pretty dang good time.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, is there anything else you want to talk about before I let you go back to your...
Yeah, I've already said a lot more than I had any idea of saying, so no. The other organization that I mentioned that has a big fundraiser is Tulsa Cares. That's one of the most important organizations in town now. They've been in existence for many years, and they have a facility. They bought a former church building. I think it's on 11th out near just this side of Yale, and they provide provide services for anyone with HIV/AIDS. And they have a food pantry. They have social services, and they've been a vital part of the Tulsa Cares and Hope. Hope Testing Clinic is on 31st, just east of Harvard. And each of those organizations has a big annual fundraising event. That's a big, huge social occasion for the gay community. But more and more, the people who attend are from the straight community. So I like it because it's mixing the groups.
Oh.
And that keeps the gay community in Tulsa from being too isolated, too compacted just in our own community. Mm-hmm. It's going to be that way kind of naturally anyway, because that's people you feel more comfortable with. But these events, these big social fundraisers, bring in just a complete mixture, and you've got all these people mixing and mingling together and having a great time. And so I think it says a lot for Tulsa that we can do that, because again, I've always lived here, but talking to other friends who have lived other places and who do now, it's not necessarily that way to that extent in some other communities. So
that's so cool.
For whatever that's worth.
This is a nice town.
It is, yeah.
I was born here, and I'm proud of it now that I've heard you talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much for all this great information and your wonderful story.
Sure.
Oh, just thank you. Is there anything else you want to say before I shut the recorder off?
No, I mean, this has been enlightening for me. So.
Well, good.